like you say, church. So this is a group of people that actually is very allergic to that word church, right? Because you're getting a lot of people that come to this world who have trauma. They've suffered spiritual abuse. They grew up in an environment where they were told that, God and, eternal love and acceptance and all the beautiful things you want from your spiritual home are not available to them. You reached out because I work for the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm currently their director of basically lifespan spiritual development.
It's kind of a open-ended title there.
Yeah, right, yeah. So they can just keep throwing lots of stuff in that goodie bag. Yeah, it is. It's kind of a mouthful too. It's interesting. I've been with that particular community, the fellowship, for about 3 years now, in a professional capacity. It's interesting because, and so like you say, church. So this is a group of people that actually is very allergic to that word church, right? Because you're getting a lot of people that come to this world who have trauma. They've suffered spiritual abuse. They grew up in an environment where they were told that, God and, eternal love and acceptance and all the beautiful things you want from your spiritual home are not available to them because they're gay, or they're non-binary, or they don't subscribe to a certain set of beliefs. So yeah, church is off
That's a
limits. We
no-go.
don't use that word. But it's interesting because I grew up I'm a similar background to, I guess, a lot of the people who come with similar wounding. I grew up, I'm the kid of my dad was the child of Baptist missionaries. My mom's like full, born again conservative Christian parents. I think when I was a child, my dad taught Sunday school and my mom played, the church piano and did the church choir. I mean, so a lot. And then I went to private Christian school 5 days a week.
So you were ingrained in the culture.
Totally. And then I left home, was kicked out of home at 16. And so I was like, well, great, I'm done with that. I never need to step foot in a religious setting ever again. Like 16, I'm done with that, moving on. And then I had a friend, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, who had been connected to this community at Huff, at the fellowship, who she had been there because she really was finding a really rich, rewarding experience for her kids and for herself. And just the community there was really, really rich. And she's like, you should come check this out. I'd lived here at that time for 20 years or something. I'm like, where is this place? I've never even heard of it. And so I made my way out there. And for sure, I think the first day there was a lot of kind of quote unquote churchy elements that was like, what am I doing here? There's hymnals and they're passing an offering basket and all these little things that I remembered from it. So it was a little like, whew.
Flashbacks.
Why am I here? Is this the right place for me? But the people were so night and day from what I remember experiencing as a child. I mean, you've got just such a wide open array, wonderfully accepting, diverse paths and experiences. And that's kind of the main ethos is like, you walk in and the whole energy is you don't have to believe what we believe. This isn't like you subscribe to these particular beliefs and then you can be part of our club. It's just, it's welcoming. So yeah, the cannabis thing it's not that big a deal. It turns out actually in that world. Yeah.
That subscribing to a belief system it can be dangerous because it's a box, right? Especially with Christianity and Catholicism. As a whole, or in the past, if you tried to push up against those boundaries, you could be banned from the church and cast out from that community. And if you are like you, or like most people, if you grow up in that church, these are the people that you know. This is your family, your friends, the people you see on Sundays, you do all these communal activities with, and then to say, well, I don't really agree with this aspect of it, you can get outcast. And that's scary for a lot of people.
Totally. I mean, if you figure, I mean, this, there was some study I read recently that was saying how social isolation is actually more damaging to your health than like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, just because we're hardwired to be social creatures. We need each other. I think that's part of why the last few years was so difficult for people, because not only were we dealing with this, crazy unknown ailment lingering in the air, we also didn't have connections to one another to
You couldn't
kind
go
of
see anybody. You're
totally,
stuck in your house every day.
totally. So yeah, that thought of being ostracized or cast out of your tribe, so to speak, because you won't say, yes,
You don't check these boxes.
yeah, totally.
What is there a predominant religion amongst your group? Or does everybody kind of believe their own thing? Would you even say that you guys subscribe to a predominant religion, or it's just more of a spirituality aspect?
Yeah, well, and it's so interesting too, because it's like, so I come from a place where, so after leaving home, I spent probably the next 15 or so years like really diving down that spiritual rabbit hole. So that languaging for me
Kind of
is
clicks.
right on. Yeah, I'm like spiritual. That's, like let's talk about different, paths of mysticism and different philosophies and ways of knowing and, conceptualizing the universe and our place in it. Like that, yeah, that's my jam. But then you get a whole range of people, everything from like, atheist, humanist, who, I have to kind of give a trigger warning. I sang a song the other day for the congregation, and I was just like, just a trigger warning, guys. I'm going to use the G word here. I'm going to say God, and you can substitute whatever word you want for that, because I know some of you, that's a hot button word. There's a lovely, like a Buddhist Sangha that meets there regularly that's connected to us, and they, follow the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, and do all the kind of like Plum Blossom Village lineage stuff. So that's connected to us. There's historically been like a pagan group that meets regularly there and does some earth-based rituals. You have some, I don't know that we have a lot of Christians. I think I think it's maybe safe to say that's a smaller portion of the community. But I think, so what really defines, kind of any congregation, any community that wants to define itself as Unitarian Universalist, is there's these 7 principles to which they just ask people to consider and to begin to work to embody, basically, things like the worth and dignity of every human being, or, acknowledging and embracing the interdependence of all life. I mean, stuff that if you think about it is, we should probably all be able to sign on, say yes to.
Yeah, good tenants, right?
Yeah. So it's pretty wide ranging. Yeah. You get a
Well,
whole,
Buddhist to pagan is a pretty big
right.
leap.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can feel a little bit like, um, spiritual buffet land a little bit, like let's do a little meditation here and let's do a little earth-based ritual here, and which is lovely. I think you could probably, if someone is really wanting to go deep on one particular spiritual lineage, it's maybe not the best place, because it's much more wide ranging. I would say it's not the place, like if you really, really want to explore like, Reform Judaism and get deep into that, we have beautiful temples here that you can go connect with, but Huff is probably not the place to start.
You guys are more, if you're trying to find an alternate route. You guys kind of have a taste of everything. You can see, oh, there's this, there's also this. There are these different ways of thinking outside of the structure of the main religions, or
Yeah.
the big ones.
Well, and I think it's also like so much of it is about it's about community. It's you have people that recognize the value in creating a space where you can come and you can temporarily step out of those really limiting definitions of you're not defined by your job, you're not defined by your income, you're not defined by your sexual orientation, you're not defined by your past trauma. You can just come and be welcomed and have this beautiful, restorative, regenerative, connecting experience with other people, and that there's value in that. And so much of it, it's almost less about what we say we believe, although that's it's a piece of it. And there's a huge bent towards social justice. It's like, let's not just talk about what we believe, but let's actually roll up our sleeves and fucking get to work here. um, but it's so much of it is really about just fostering that sense of community, that sense of connection, I would say. So
Now, why does that social justice aspect come into play? Because you don't normally hear that tied up in
mm.
spiritual groups or religious groups.
um, I mean,
Is that just out of because the community is these people who have these scars from these other areas that they want to try to help give back or help others in some way?
it may be a piece of it, but I think it's also comes from just a larger acknowledgement. I mean, because, when we're talking, UUism, like it's a whole huge nationwide organization, so it's not just one little, group of
Local.
people in
Yeah.
Bayside saying, hey, let's do this. They're connected to this much larger ecosystem and um, philosophy and movement that says, we as spiritual seekers or as values driven people, as people that are connected to a faith, to a religion of, as UUism is defined as a religion, we have this potential to do tremendous good in the world. We have resources, we have status, we have uh, tax exempt status, because we're a religious organization, like we are poised to do tremendous good in the world. And wouldn't it just be a complete shame if all we were was just talking heads, just people that came together to like, oh, that felt really nice. We sang some songs and, we had some coffee together and, talked about all the things that we believe in. But it really, we aim to be a place where people can step in, So like one of the things we started doing in the last year, and part of it was, was my, my own frustration. It was just like, we got to create a space here. If Sunday is the only vehicle we have right now for people to gather, we have to create a space to like do
Do
the
something.
thing. Yeah. So we started doing the fourth Sunday of the month, we've been doing what we're calling Social Action Sunday. So each fourth Sunday, we partner up with another nonprofit organization like, the North Coast Environmental Center. We're partnering with them for September and doing a coastal cleanup effort with them. We've partnered with Cooperation Humboldt or um, Centro del Pueblo, or we did stuff with the food bank, where everyone came together and we organized food for 3 hours and it was amazing, So it's one of those things where it doesn't ask too much of us. We just have to shift our focus. It's like, okay, rather than coming and sitting in a room and talking about this, which just has value as well, what if we just took a quarter of that energy and pivoted it into action? So that's been exciting to watch that transpire.